Assalamu alaikum. Hello, good morning, everyone. I hope you guys are doing very well today. I hope you guys had a good rest last night and you're ready to start your day with myself, Maha Mukhtim, only on PTV World this morning. We have, once again, another wonderful show lined up for you, raising awareness about what is happening around the world and within Pakistan. And also, we are looking in the first segment, as you know, at a verse from the Quran, looking at the interpretation, giving that balanced narrative that most people within Pakistan, live by, and giving, seeing how can we implement it in our day-to-day lives. But before we get started with our first segment, as you know, we're going to have a look at what's happening around the world. But because we have such a jam-packed day, I'm going to keep the introduction short. So let's take a look at the top stories. Childhood obesity is a major problem in the US as well as other parts of the world. According to the US Centers for Disease Control, 18% of Americans aged between 2 and 19 are currently obese. And we have done all this gardening things on our show as well to tell you how you can do it. Moving on, thousands of people gathered dressed in white in front of Les Invalides in Paris to celebrate the 30th white-clad Dinner en Blanc picnic. Cosmonauts are playing with the Yelstar 18, one of the official footballs made in Pakistan for FIFA World Cup 2018. And PTV also did a report on how much Pakistan provides regarding football. Moving on, today is World Environment Day, and it's being observed. The day is observed to raise awareness about emerging environmental issues and action for protection of the environment. And the last piece of news is very apt because we are actually observing World Environment Day today as well. And the theme is beat plastic pollution. So this is very imperative that we do that. But we will be talking about that in the later half. But before that, as you know, the first half is always going to be dedicated to a verse from the Quran during the month of Ramadan. And today we will be looking at Surah Taa-Haa, verse 24 to 28. And it's all about effective communication and how can we improve it. Because as you know, we share our anecdotes every morning with you guys. And at the beginning of the week, I was telling you about, these online trollings and, thinking that this kind of communication and saying these kind of opinions is okay. So to discuss what is right, what is wrong, or what is the gray area between it all, we've been joined by Dr. Kavil Kaisar. She is a pediatrician by profession, but she's also a Quran teacher, and she's been teaching for over 20 years kids through the Quran and Sunnah. Assalamu alaikum, good morning.
Walaikum assalam.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure.
It's always a pleasure to have you on the show. So today we're discussing Surah Taa-Haa, and it's about effective communication. And this is also another mode of communication. So I was very excited about the topic today.
One of the things that we need to understand about communication is, the public speaking, they say it's the worst fear in the world. People don't fear dying as much as they fear that they'll have to stand up somewhere and speak up.
Absolutely.
So these verses, they basically guide us when we are in a situation where we have either a stage fright or we are so much in panic about talking to anyone. And these verses, they give us guideline. And basically, this is also a form of a dua, a supplication that we can make.
Right.
So let's start with these verses.
Okay.
And if you look at the verse number 24, it says, this is Surah Taa-Haa, verse number 24, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Izhab ila fir'auna innahu tagha. Now, if you look at the story, little background into how these verses came up, when Musa alayhi salam, he was told to go in the court of Pharaoh.
Yeah.
And he was asked to go and deliver the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about the oneness of God and all that God expected him to go and deliver there. It was a very difficult moment for him because Pharaoh, he was not only a king, he claimed to be God himself. He was very arrogant and he was like ruling the whole world or society at that time. And then Musa alayhi salam was raised in the home of Pharaoh. So it was like a very difficult situation. He was coming from from the people who were basically slaves in that community. So he was told to go in the court of Pharaoh and talk to him. And that is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in this verse, Izhab ila fir'auna innahu tagha. Go to Pharaoh, indeed he has transgressed. Allah knows that he was what kind of a person he was, but someone needed to go there and convey the message to him.
Right.
So Allah picked Prophet Musa alayhi salam for that. And it's like, it's a situation where you are like, oh my God, I can't do it. I simply can't do it. I don't think so. I mean, you expect me to go and do this thing? Like, when we ask some people to go and deliver a talk somewhere in public, and they flatly refuse. So that was the kind of first thought that probably came to Musa alayhi salam. Right. That he's not even courteous, he is so insulting. How can I go and talk to him? Right. And then the second verse comes, Qala Rabbi shrah li sadri. This is a supplication that is given, and I do recommend to all the people who are going around, who have to talk to people in different scenarios. It could be a student showing up in front of an examiner and has to speak up, or you personally doing like a show, but or any other person who has to do a public speaking and trying to convey the messages. This is an excellent dua and supplication that you can start your talk with. Right. So in this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told Musa alayhi salam, say, Rabbi shrah li sadri, say, my Lord, expand for me my chest. It's like when we look at the word shrah, it means like cutting the meat clean. It's like, you want your chest, your thought process to expand in all dimensions in such a beautiful manner that you are able to understand your responsibility, what you have to convey. Like, you are totally tuned in for the whole process. Right. That yes, this is the message I have to convey to someone. And you need to be convinced in yourself before you step out and try talking to other people. Because sometimes when we are trying to say something to another person and we are like, I hate this subject, or I don't even understand why we're even talking about it. So then, you lose that enthusiasm and zeal to convey that message. Right. So that is why this is like the first part that we need to understand. Then we move on to the next verse, which is 26. These are very small verses, yes, but very impactful. And it says, وَيَسِّرْ لِي أَمْرِي, and ease my task for me. This is so beautiful. First, you want to understand things, and then second important is you want ease on how the things have to be delivered. Now, when I'm saying that, it doesn't mean I will only convey something which is easy. It's like if you are going for a horse riding, right, and you have an untamed horse, and somebody asks you to be on that horse, how do you feel about that? And then at the other perspective, there is a horse which has been tamed, and then you also have saddled the horse. It's the same horse, right, it's a difficult ride, but now the horse have been equipped so nicely for you that you're able to ride it well and with comfort. So whatever I am supposed to go out and convey, it is difficult, but make it easy for me. This is like, in this, what we're doing is, we are having confidence in our ability, but more than that, we are having confidence in our God, that He is going to come to our rescue. He is going to somehow make everything easy and possible for us. The next verse, 27, it says, وَحْلُلْ أُقْدَةً مِّن لِسَانِي, untie the knot from my tongue. Okay? Because when you're nervous, when you're tense, when you somehow, you have numbness in your head and you're trying to gain back the confidence to speak up in a public gathering, and what happens is, in those scenarios, people start stuttering, they have a lot of fumbles, and sometimes, you're saying something else and you're supposed to be delivering it in another way. So you're
I stutter to this day at times, it happens to everyone.
Yes, it happens. So what we're saying at that moment is that I want fluency in my speech. Make it so easy for me that when I deliver, it is very impactful. Right. And then the last verse for today is يَفْقَهُ قَوْلِي, that they may understand my speech. So if you look at the verses, these verses, they start with, they give us like a very perfect package for speaking or communicating to someone. Like you start with, I want to be convinced about it. Then you move on to make it easy for me. I know it's not easy. Then you say, my speech needs to be fluent. And then whatever I'm trying to convey needs to be going very effectively, reaching the other person, like hitting them hard. And they need to take an impact of it. That, yes, you know, this is what she is telling me, or this is what he is telling me. Because if you are trying to just create some sort of a superficial impression, you know, I'm such a good speaker. And when I talk, people just are listening and they're not even moving. And I can talk to them about anything. But at the end of the day, when people move out, they are like asking each other, why was she just talking about it? Or what's the purpose of all this talk that we were listening to? So you want people to have the right impact of it as well. So this is like in the nutshell what these verses tell us. And as I said, I highly recommend all the people to learn these verses and recite them.
Absolutely.
You can do it even in your heart. This is what I do when I come over here. And while you're giving all the introductions, I recite these verses in my heart.
Wonderful.
Because whatever we are trying to establish through this program, as you always say, telling people what these verses talk about, I want them to understand these verses as they should be.
Absolutely, no, because that's the thing, you know, you can recite something, but if you don't know what it means, then, you know,
Yes,
what is the point
exactly.
of it? But one thing is that, you know, one query that we had is that we're taking sections of the different surahs. When it comes to memorizing them or reciting them, do we need to, you know, one of our viewers was asking, do we need to go back and learn the whole thing, or is it okay to learn parts of it if it's a particularly long surah? Like,
No,
how does it work?
you can learn parts of it as you like, because sometimes when we are reading the Quran, when doing the recitation of the Quran and you're going over the meanings of it, you get so enchanted by some of the verses and you're totally in awe about those verses. So you can learn them. And yes, if you're learning a couple of verses, that gives you more energy to go on and learn more surahs as well. So you can take a start anyway.
Okay, wonderful. And so now, you know, when we are looking at this surah as well, so it's about effective communication. It's about giving us the confidence to be able to get our point across very neatly and to, you know, be precise, which I'm struggling to do right now. But then when it comes to interacting with other people, does this apply then as well when we're having our one-on-one
Yes, even in one-to-one conversation, even with a lot of people around you, because what you're trying to do is take energy and strength from your creator.
Right.
At the same time, you're also putting straight your own intentions. That because sometimes what we do is when we are just trying to create an impression, even then, you know, we make so many blunders and mistakes. So when you are just natural the way you are, you want to actually have people learn the better things without being worried about what kind of impression you are creating. That's when, you know, you hit the nail in the right spot. No? So that's what we should be focusing on. So one-to-one, other people, wherever you feel that you are getting nervous, you are getting anxious about conveying the message. It could be between husband and wife. Sometimes the wife has to say something or vice versa. Even then, you know, you can make this dua for yourself. It could be between the parents and the kids. Sometimes they're talking about their generation gap. Sometimes the parents say, why don't you understand my point of view? Or the kids would come up and say, Mom, you don't know, you know, what the world is moving the direction, and you're still living in those old times. So in all these situations, if we make this dua, you will feel the impact of it.
Okay, wonderful. And you know, for all those people, this is wonderful to have as a tool as well to give you that confidence. But you know, for those people who really do struggle, you know, we're talking about the extreme cases now, and because you deal with children on a daily basis, and you know, you've seen probably the whole spectrum over the last 20 years. You know, how long does it take for those messages to actually take effect when someone is, you know, trying to find the right path, or they want their child to kind of have more confidence in a public forum?
You know, what we need to do is we need to understand, especially when we're talking about kids, and how the parents, all the parents, what I've seen is they want their kids to be bold and come up on all the events and take a lead and always be the first one to come up with the perfect answers. Yes, there is a lot of pressure on the kids these days. What the parents need to understand is the temperament of their kids, and then they need to understand different scenarios, because some kids are by nature they're very bold and they're very outspoken, and they would come up and perfectly do the job. But there are a lot of kids who are shy, who are introvert, who don't want to actually come up and speak in public. So what the parents can do is give them appropriate opportunities without having undue pressure on them, and see the situations initially where the kids are more comfortable. And once the kids, they become more, they gain their confidence, and then what they can do is they can start giving them more exposure. Because many times when the parents are giving outright exposure in the school or assembly programs or even in the public gatherings when the whole family is sitting, sometimes it becomes too much for the kids. And we have often seen that the parents, even like I've seen when the parents are interacting with someone and they're like, salam karo, why don't you say salam to, you know, the uncle and aunt, and the kids, they are like, you know, dropping dead at that moment. They're so shy, and because all the eyes are glued on those kids. So what I recommend is that, yes, teach your kids these du'as, and at the very same time, take them through these baby steps so that ultimately in like 5 years, 10 years, depending upon your own kid's temperament, they gain this confidence to be able to convey the message in the right manner.
Or at least be able to manage the tension
Yeah,
and the stress.
and everyone is not going to be a good public speaker.
Yes.
But if in one-to-one interactions, one way or the other, they are able to convey their message, that is good enough.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. And we look forward to the verse that we will be looking at tomorrow.
Inshallah.
Have a great day. So that was Surah Taa-Haa, talking about effective communication and how to improve it, you know, be it on a one-on-one situation, maybe it's in a public speaking a forum as well. So with that, we're going to go for a short break. And when you come back, as you mentioned in the top stories, it is World Environment Day 2018, and we're going to be observing it. So let's go take a break. And when you come back, we'll discuss it.
रमजान की रहमत आ जाए किरदार में, बातचीत में नरमी हो, खुशी मिले सार में। रमजान पाकिस्तान अल्लाह का एहसान है, रमजान पाकिस्तान।
Welcome back, everybody. And before the break, we were in discussion with Dr. Kaval Kesser talking about Surah Taa-Haa, and that's all about effective communication. And right now, it's very apt because right now I feel like that's what I need, because when we do observe international days, we need to do justice to them and we need to make sure we get as much information out there. And as I mentioned in the introduction as well, it is World Environment Day, and the theme for 2018 is Beat Plastic Pollution. The Environment Day has been around since 1974, and since then it has become over 100 countries observe this day. This year it's being held in India as well. Now within Pakistan we've seen a huge growth in the population. We've got rapid urbanization and there's industrial growth, but the thing is everyone gets affected by all this pollution that we're seeing. And within Pakistan, there's knock-on effects. So the air pollution then affects the wildlife, and then you have the effects of, what's happening on the coast and the marine life. And as you've seen on social media, a whale had recently just died in Thailand, and it had, I think about 11 pounds or over 80, I don't know, we said the figures yesterday, but there was, it died because of all the plastic bags in its stomach. So that is one thing. There are 1 trillion disposable bags being used. Pakistan is also, one of those countries that is seen as, on the verge of a potential catastrophe. So to discuss what the situation is, what the different organizations are doing, and what, role the individuals, the citizens can play as well, we have been very lucky. We've been joined by Mohammed Hassan Kazalbash. He is the country director of Oxfam International. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much.
Besides Mohammed Hassan Kazalbash, we've been lucky. We've been joined by Her Excellency Mrs. Ardi Stoyos Bracken, the Ambassador of the Kingdom of Netherlands. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Pleasure.
Besides Her Excellency, we've been joined by Mohammed Talha Kamran. He is a student and he has been promoting environment factors within his school. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for being here. So I'm going to get the conversation started because we have very limited time. So sir, I'm going to start with you. Within Pakistan, the importance of observing Environment Day. Let's start from there.
Well, thank you very much. And as you rightly pointed out, I mean, this is a global event that takes place in many countries. And here in Pakistan, this year in particular, we're talking about, Beat the Plastic campaign, which is basically focusing on the eradication and the use of plastic bags.
Right.
Plastic bags, I mean, I can give you a simple example. The ordinary plastic bag that you purchase from a grocery store takes close to 100 years to degrade.
Right.
So the environmental impact of that one plastic bag is phenomenal. The example for Pakistan I can give you is the Karachi floods of last year. Took place purely on the basis of the fact that the drainage system and the drainage canals in Karachi were blocked by plastic bags.
Right.
And as a result of that, water could not flow through, and hence we found significant flooding in the city of Karachi. So it is a real issue. It is an everyday issue. It is an issue in Pakistan. It's an issue all across the world. But here in Pakistan, we need to make a concerted effort to eradicate the use of plastic bags and revert to either biodegradable products or, what our parents used to use is the cloth bag.
Absolutely.
And that is really what Oxfam is focusing on this
And
time.
we will get into the campaigns and what Oxfam is doing, especially on this day. But I just would like to move on to Her Excellency. This is not just a problem within Pakistan. You need to just go into Google and you can see that this is an international issue. As I just mentioned, that whale thing, that's sticking out in my head at the moment because it's so sad. What would you say is the situation happening, internationally across the board?
I think on a day like this, we're all very much made aware of the fact that indeed it is a global issue and that it needs a concerted effort, individuals, governments, industries, NGOs. To some extent, perhaps there has already been more awareness on these issues in countries like the Netherlands, in Europe and other Western countries, but that is not to say that we're not struggling equally. Mohammed was just referring to the use of cloth bags. That was quite common in the 1950s. But then at a certain point we felt that plastic bags were more convenient and more modern. So it also has to do with changing perceptions of what is modern, what is good for us.
Absolutely.
The use of cloth bags, people taking their own bags to shops, I think that's already more common in the Netherlands. We've seen the introduction of a levy on plastic bags. If you go to a shop and you do want a plastic bag, you'll have to pay for
Yes,
it.
exactly.
So that discourages people, and it encourages people to take their own bags. In the Netherlands, we have already for many years a system where if you buy soft drinks in plastic bottles, you pay a deposit, and you can take the bottles back to the shop, and then you get the deposit back. So in that sense, people, I think through various means, have already been made more aware of the disadvantages of plastic and the importance of trying where possible to reduce or at least recycle.
Okay, wonderful. And I will bring that back in to see, how we can implement such things in Pakistan, or if it's possible, or what the solutions are. But before I do that, I want to move on to Mohammed Talha. As a student, it is about the youth and the youngsters. They are going to be the ones that are going to be living in this earth much longer than us. So how do you feel on such a day? Do you think that there's awareness about the situation?
Well, it's devastating for me to know the causes and the adverse effects of pollution that have been caused by the previous generations that will be coming in front of us. So, being more than 54.8% of Pakistan's population, it's our job to hold them back. So, we've been working on that, and I think it's better to aware the youngsters than it is to convert other things and the elders to manipulate their thinking and ask them to stop using such things. It's the youngsters who will bring the change.
Okay, absolutely. And we do hope that you bring that positive change. But we will talk about who are the who are the people who have more kind of stake in this. But sir, as Her Excellency pointed out, within Europe or in the Western world, there is slightly more awareness. I remember back in the late 90s or early 2000s, they introduced the different bins that they started giving to every household. Within Pakistan, how do we start tackling this topic? Because, like you said, plastic bags, I mean, we are very frivolous with them. And actually, I've, up until my friend reminded me, I've also been very guilty of that over here. Because we use it for our rubbish bags and in our bins. So what would you say, how do we start within Pakistan?
Well, I mean, plastic, of course, has its benefits. I mean, I'm not here to completely bash plastic. I mean, the fact is that, it has made a significant impact on everyday life. But when we talk about plastic bags, when we talk about, food containers, there are, good alternatives. So, our tagline for this campaign is that if you can't reuse it, refuse it.
Yes.
So the point is that with cloth bags or with biodegradable bags, the impact that we will have on the environment will be less severe as compared to the plastic bag.
Right.
And then the incidences of polluting the marine life, polluting wildlife, also clogging the drainage systems, these will all become issues of the past.
Right.
So it's really quite important that not only, I mean, it's as RD mentioned, it's actually the responsibility of each and every citizen, in addition to the government and municipality.
Absolutely.
But it's the citizen. I mean, you have to make a concerted choice yourself to take your own bag to the supermarket. To even when you're buying clothes and it's not just going to the grocery store, going to the shopping and buying clothes for Eid, for example, and not put them in plastic bags, but bring a cloth bag with you or a paper bag and bring the presents home.
Absolutely. So now the thing is, you just mentioned the campaign that Oxfam is doing. If you can't reuse it, refuse it. How exactly how is the campaign being operated within Pakistan, and how are we reaching not just the urbanized people, it's also the rural community who also have a stake in this?
Well, we have public service messages going out
Right.
in multiple languages across the country. We are running programs in Multan, Lahore, Karachi, Islamabad, Rawalpindi this afternoon to raise the awareness of the common citizen of the importance of using a cloth bag or a biodegradable bag. And it is through the media, it is through shows like yours that we would like to make this an everyday occurrence in each and every household, rural or urban. But it is predominantly an urban issue.
Okay.
I mean, the rural
Okay.
communities still, even though they're still using plastic bags in the rural community, there is still a lot of awareness around using reusable bags in the rural area. But in the urban centers, it's really not even encouraged. I mean, I would like to see these big brand companies to use paper bag or cloth bag in their shops rather than plastic bags.
Absolutely, that absolutely makes more sense. The paper bags compared to the plastic bags. Very simple solutions out there. Yes, please.
Maybe returning to your question on,
Yes.
on waste management systems.
Yeah.
I think there are very interesting initiatives popping up in Pakistan. As an embassy, we signed up with a local NGO, Saaf Sheher. We have bins in the embassy to collect different types of waste.
Right.
I'm aware that there is also an informal system in place, but we feel that this NGO makes sure that there's no exploitation, which is the case, I think, in the informal system, also maybe less hygienic. In any case, we now have separate bins for for the separation of different materials, and we are ensured that these materials are then the basis for the production of other products. So I think in that sense, if we could scale up such initiatives, already an important step can be taken.
Absolutely. So then it moves on perfectly to Mohammed Taa-Haa. So during this, it's raising awareness raising campaigns. What are you guys doing within your schools and? Okay.
What we've been doing is that we've been conducting different surveys, and then we have been conducting different workshops regarding the 3 R's:
Okay.
reuse, reduce, and recycle.
Excellent.
So I think that's the only way we can bring a change.
Absolutely.
Through awareness.
Okay,
And
but
then implementation.
I want to ask you one thing. When you guys are doing these, campaigns, you guys are discussing what the situation is. How receptive are your fellow students? Are they helping, or they're like, what's the point? This is more effort, and et cetera, et cetera.
Actually, when we are conducting these campaigns, we need to tell them the effects, adverse effects of pollution through plastic.
Okay.
We need to show them.
Okay.
Like we've been showing them videos regarding a turtle's throat being clogged with plastic. So by conducting that, it brings an awe into them that what have we been doing. So that actually helps, and they're very receptive, and they've been helping, and they want to initiate more campaigns with us.
Okay, so now, sir, I move on to, let's bring it to Pakistan. Regarding the whole, individual efforts, as you've said, it's the responsibility of every citizen. But then after that, once the rubbish is leaving your house and you've made the concerted effort to have different bins for different things and recycle, what is do we know what the management system is within Pakistan? Are we actually on a, more bigger scale handling the problem?
Unfortunately, the answer to that question is no.
Okay.
And it's really interesting that you raise this issue and question now. I mean, this is an election year.
Yes.
And it would be very important for each and every citizen of this country who is going to be voting in the not so distant future to question the political parties, to question the members of the who are standing for election, what is their stance on environment? How are they going to address this whole menace of pollution and especially plastic waste? And then vote for those people, those political parties who have a very clear, tangible manifesto in dealing with this this menace, because this is going to impact, the rich, the poor, the urban society, the rural society. I mean, the environment. I mean, this is the only environment we have.
Absolutely.
And we've already messed it up significantly, we need to now reverse it in order for us to have a prosperous life, not for ourselves, but also for our grandchildren.
Okay, absolutely. So then I want to ask you, sorry, because I just want to see what's happening within Pakistan. Due to the lack of awareness in, certain segments of society, it is causing the pollution problem within Pakistan. So, the theme is plastics this year, but this also has a knock-on effect. As you mentioned, the wildlife, the marine life is all being affected. Then, if that's being affected, then, you have more pressure on the health systems, and then,
Exactly.
there's more expenditure within the country. Now, within Pakistan, how are we seeing that maybe the marine life is being affected? How does that have a direct impact on individuals?
Well, I mean,
Well, you mentioned the flooding already.
the marine life, of course, then we have less fish to catch. I mean,
Right.
the communities that depend on fishing, our partner in Karachi is the Pakistan Fisherfolk Federation, and they are seeing direct impact on their catch with the pollution of the Arabian Sea.
Right.
And as a result of that, the fishing stocks have dwindled. As a result of that, their livelihood has dwindled. So it is having a knock-on effect, and we see that not only with the fisher folk, but also anyone also working on in the agricultural sector.
Yes.
The water being polluted is then causing an adverse effect on crop production, and quite frankly, we don't even have clean drinking water, and the drinking water that is available is highly contaminated, and contaminated with mostly affluents from the industry and related to the plastic industry.
Absolutely. Okay, so Your Excellency, I want to move on to you. So, you have an extensive experience and knowledge in the Sustainable Development Goals as well, and the type, the work that needs to be done. This is happening globally and internationally. When, in your own region, when this was affecting, the population to a certain extent, how was it implemented that, how many campaigns, how many years did it take for people to actually start realizing that this is their role and their duty? Did it take a while?
It did take a while. I can't give you any precise figures, but I think already in the 70s we sort of started to realize that plastic perhaps is not as much the solution to some of our issues as we had hoped for. But another element, I think, is with awareness and with the introduction of policies, that those are important steps, but then enforcement obviously is a very important step as well. And I think there perhaps we've managed to organize our systems quite effectively. And as Mohammed was also pointing out, citizens also need to keep their politicians accountable on the implementation of such policies. So in that sense, it's a continuous struggle.
Absolutely, and so that was one of my points, and thank you for raising that about the enforcement. So now, as you mentioned, it's election year, or within our homes are doing it, but over here the systems are complicated. They're not always as efficient as one would hope they are. So as a community, what would you say, how would one approach the situation? So we know that we're trying on our end, and then the implementation, once it's not being enforced, basically. They're collecting the rubbish from our homes, and then probably, I know in some sectors in Islamabad, they burn rubbish still, and, it's all sorts, plastics, and it's very dangerous, it's hazardous.
Absolutely.
So how do we get this enforcement element? Because that's also quite complicated within this country.
And actually, you have used the correct word. It's hazardous.
Yes.
And burning plastic is hazardous. I mean, not only for the wildlife, but also for human consumption.
Absolutely.
It's hazardous for your eyes, for your lungs. So, I mean, CDA, the Capital Development Authority here in Islamabad, believes in a plastic-free Islamabad. But when when we talk to the management in CDA, the issue they come up with is enforcement.
Right.
You know, that the police force does not have enough manpower, enough resources to enforce the fact that this should be a plastic-free city.
Okay, I thought there was at least 150,000 police officers in Punjab.
Well, Punjab,
Something
yes,
like
but
that.
I mean, but you see, I mean, Punjab is a huge,
Yes,
huge,
that's true, very
huge
true.
province. I mean, look at the number of shops and kiosks,
That's very
you know,
true.
all across Punjab. I mean, and can 150,000 policemen
Okay,
and women,
okay.
you know, enforce that?
Yeah.
It is, you know, it's easy to blame governments. It's
Yes.
easy to blame, you know, municipalities, but you know, the bottom line is, it is every citizen's responsibility.
Exactly. And also if we, you know, it's also our fault as well because we keep taking the bags. That's why they, you know, there's a
Sure.
demand and supply. If there's no more demand, then the supply will also deplete. Okay, so now, because we're running very short of time, as we mentioned that this is World Environment Day and it is a beat plastic pollution, what would you like to now see? You know, all these campaigns are being run, the individual efforts need to be made. So what would you like to see going forward and what would you like to share with our viewers?
Well, what I would like to see is, you know, Pakistan becoming a plastic bag-free country. And that really is what we're hoping for, where we've started this campaign, you know, by targeting specific cities. But the whole idea is that Pakistan should become a plastic-free environment and plastic-free bag environment so that we positively start impacting on the environment.
And sorry, just one last question. Do we know that if we do start to implement this, how long, maybe, do we have any time frame on how long it could be that we could be plastic?
Well, I mean, you know, the plastic that's already consumed and that's already in the ground or in our landfills, I mean, that's going to take over 100 years
Yes.
to get rid of.
Okay.
But we need to start. We need to stop using plastic bags. That's really the message I'd like to get across.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Your Excellency, any message you'd like to share with our viewers on this day?
I would be very happy if every viewer, whenever in the near future they're using plastic or drink water from a plastic bottle, at least are aware this is something that can pollute our environment. How am I going to dispose of it? Indeed, do take a cloth bag to the shop. Just be a little bit more aware of what plastic can harm, how plastic can harm our societies.
Wonderful, thank you. And Mohammed Talha, what would you like to share?
What I would like to say is that our youth has immense power and it can change the effects of plastic and any other sort of pollution in our country. What they need to do is bring out ideas from the back of their mind and develop their own campaigns and develop affiliation with the environment. Get yourself a plant or an animal and start raising it, nurturing it, and you'll see the effects on yourself.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking
Thank
the
you.
time out. It's been a pleasure having this conversation. So today it is World Environment Day and it's about beating plastic. You know, we're seeing all this stuff on the news and on social media about the negative impacts it has. And it's a very selfish thing to do because, you know, we have to leave this world for the next generations as well, you know, and we should leave it in a better state than what we got it in. So with that, if you would like any information on anything we've discussed, be it the first part of which was the Quran, Surah Taa-Haa, effective communication, or be it about the Environment Day, which is about beating plastic pollution, log on to our Facebook fan page, which is with the name of World This Morning, our Twitter page, World This Morning without a G, our Daily Motion and YouTube page, World This Morning, and the repeat is at 11:05 p.m. Have a wonderful day, and today, guys, try and recycle. See you tomorrow morning.